Hey, welcome to the Big Bluecast. Today is Monday, October the 12th. We actually missed last week. Apologies for that. We had some technical difficulties that came up, and we basically got to the weekend, decided to just kind of scrap it and, just kind of review the Mississippi State game and kind of go forward from there. I'm not really, honestly, that bummed out that we had to, in retrospect, that we had to miss last week because pretty much there wasn't anything happy to talk about. It was just kind of a blunder of a Ole Miss game. A lot of just doom and gloom. So,
A lot of the
I don't know.
same old, just beating ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just kind of a repeat of a lot of the stuff we talked about in the Auburn game, just worse because we had less of an excuse to have lost that game. We shouldn't have lost that game. Um, yeah, we had another game. We had a first night game of the year this past Saturday. Played Mississippi State, beat them 24-22. So things were a whole lot better this time around. Um, I don't know. Overall, I thought it was a really strange game. Just when you're looking comparatively, because the first two games we had, we play Auburn, and it looks like on paper we should have won the game. Ole Miss, in some ways, it was kind of the same way. And then this game, in a lot of ways, if you're looking on paper, it looks like we should be losing, and we won, and their offense never scored a point. The only points they had were from a safety.
Remember, there's 49
So,
points that were taken away from our total offense due to the long snap.
oh my
So
gosh,
that kind of
yeah,
skewed the numbers the wrong direction a little bit.
yeah, that was oh my gosh, that was something else. um, but yeah, it was especially the Auburn and the Ole Miss game. There's a lot of the offense either doing really good stuff or looking at least passable, like just okay, and then especially the pass defense and our secondary being really bad, and the special teams being pretty bad. Especially the Ole Miss game, our secondary was just dreadful, and the special teams couldn't really do anything. So I mean, we had the missed field goal at the end, the missed extra point, all that stuff. It's really disappointing.
Yeah, and we was looking for
Um,
Rain to be our savior, and we didn't get it.
yeah,
But I think the secondary may have been listening to all the criticism they were getting across every platform,
that's
and
it.
maybe gave
That's
me
at
some
least a
motivation.
good. Yeah, I mean, I thought if nothing else, especially if the coaches are really trying to pound something in their head and get them over the hump, and they're getting just burned on social media and stuff. At least now we know they'll pay attention, and it's probably something like you said that's probably helped right the ship a little bit.
Well, and we
Um,
definitely can't argue on the defensive coordinator on this weekend. That's for sure.
right. I mean, it's bizarre because we were just dogging the secondary. Even it's another reason I'm kind of glad that last week turned out the way it did is because a lot of the predictions I was going to make for this past Saturday would have just been totally wrong. Like I thought they were just going to pass all over us. It was going to just be this high scoring game. We'd have to just keep up, try to hold possession as much as possible, try to dominate in that aspect. And I mean, granted, I don't think that I just think their offense had a really bad night, but
They did, and then
uh,
at the same time, the six interceptions kind of
yeah, I
saved the
mean,
day because let's face it,
yeah,
they did march down the field on us a lot. And
yeah.
the secondary, while they did make the big interceptions when we needed them,
Mhm.
if it hadn't been for the interceptions, it may have been a different ball game.
Yeah, I mean, got to give credit where it's due. They did some good stuff,
Yeah, and it
like
comes right back
really
down to what
impressive
I've been
stuff.
talking about. The first two games of the season, which we had technical difficulties last week, so didn't get to talk about it. But the fact of the turnover margin, we finally controlled the turnover margin, and what do?
Yeah,
We win the football game.
yeah. I mean, and now granted, I really wasn't happy in a lot of ways with the offense. I think Terry Wilson, after having a really good game against Ole Miss, like legitimately just looking really good, thought he took a pretty big step back this
Well,
week.
in all fairness, he had a good first quarter,
Yeah.
and his second quarter wasn't atrocious by no means. I think Mississippi, Ole Miss was made some
Mhm.
adjustments and stuff to kind of help contain him.
Yeah.
But starting the third quarter, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
When do we see
It was just
Gatewood?
kind of Yeah, it was just kind of a typical. And sometimes that happens with him, like we've talked about, especially if he does like one thing where he kind of messes up, it can kind of snowball. and especially where we're not as good at making halftime adjustments. Like he just kind of
But it
collapsed
was
a little bit there in the
part of
second
that
half.
was on Mississippi because they were being so
Yeah,
creative with their defensive sets. I think he was confused a lot.
yeah,
And the one play where he literally turned around and the running back wasn't there because he had switched
yeah,
directions and Terry miscommunicated and then got drilled.
yeah. And now, and we've kind of talked about that before too, like especially when he's dealing with situations where, like you said, the defense get creative and they're doing just different things, they make good adjustments. He's not as good as a decision maker when he has to really just like think on his toes and be creative and come up with like an alternative. A lot of times he does better if it's a more just clear cut thing. Here's what you need to do, and just hope that that works because if not, like he's kind of in trouble unless he can just scramble and run. Um, but yeah, I mean, it did get to a point there where, especially like into the third quarter, like through the fourth quarter, you're thinking, if nothing else, like especially with the score the way it was, like let's just go ahead and throw Gatewood in and just kind of see what we have, you
I was a
know,
little disappointed at the coaching staff for waiting until the last possession of the game to bring him in.
in
It's
the
like we
last
could have used
series.
him
Yeah.
probably the fourth quarter. And
Which
halfway
that's
through
kind
the
of what I
third
was.
quarter, I would have probably considered bringing him in just
Yeah.
because we're not getting anything out of Terry at the moment. So bring him on the bench, talk to him, bring Gatewood in, see what he's got to bring to the table in an actual game. Now, no, he's not getting as many
Yeah.
reception with those guys as Terry is. And
Yeah.
the one bullet he threw, and it was a bullet, was dead
Yeah.
on the
It
money,
was.
hit the receiver right where he needed to hit him. The receiver just couldn't hang on to it. And I think it's because they're
Yeah.
not used to those fast, hard passes. They're used to those softer
Yeah.
passes coming from Terry.
Yeah, they're used to Terry just kind of lobbing something up over the line, 5 or 10 yards, and there you go.
And in all fairness to
And
Terry as well, there was quite several drop passes that were put pretty close to
yeah,
where they needed to be at. Um,
yeah, it was kind of the same thing with the Ole Miss game. I mean, back at that game, he was 14 for 18 passing, and really he only had one pass the whole game that was really off its mark. The other ones, the guys just didn't catch. Hit him right in the hands and they just dropped it. So I mean, you can't really blame him for that. But yeah, I agree with you. I kind of wish we could have had a chance to have seen a little more out of Joey Gatewood. Like you said, even just that quarter, especially, we got to a point where we pretty much knew we were going to win. So go ahead and put him in and let's just see what we have. We've said this before. It's a big difference. Like if Bo Allen's your backup, he's a freshman, whatever, break glass in case of emergency. But when you bring in a guy like Joey Gatewood, especially when you're up, pretty big in the fourth quarter, and it's not like you're expecting him to be bad or be some kind of slouch. It's like, let's go ahead and, I mean, if you're not going to throw him in the mix in that situation, then why'd you bring him in
right.
um, to begin with? But it was nice to get to see him on the field.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, he is. It's wild. Yeah. That's why when he started running that one play, I just thought, well, okay, he might actually drag a couple guys
I
with
mean,
him.
he's your
Um,
NFL style quarterback,
yeah,
6'5", 230
yeah,
pounds. I mean,
yeah. He's a
that's
big dude.
yeah, and he can see over the line. That was one thing I could definitely
Yeah,
tell. Like when he lined up at center versus Terry, and Terry's not
absolutely.
short, but there was no way he wasn't seeing over the line.
Yeah,
He could see
yeah.
exactly how that defense was lined up, and that's a huge advantage. And anybody that's a
Absolutely.
new viewer here, just know I'm usually super critical of Terry. So by me giving him some props this week,
Oh
he
yeah,
did good in my opinion. But I
yeah.
still think we should have seen Gatewood a little bit more or a little bit earlier, should I say? But,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Total surprise to see our secondary kind of step up and do what they did because I was just ready to, absolutely disavow them after this game because I thought if Mississippi State comes in and really just kind of tears it up with their passing game, then our secondary is going to just look foolish. And I mean, they did pretty good. they did.
yeah, I mean,
They did kind of.
and like I said, I mean, it's really easy to say they did really, really good because we
Yeah.
held Tom Leach to no points on his offense because his special teams is what scored
Yeah.
because of the safety and being on a kick. So his special team scored, but his offense did not. It's the first
Yeah.
time in his career that's happened. But at the same time, those 6 interceptions came at key moments. It
Yeah.
wasn't like they came on their first possession. Like there was one that did where we picked it and went straight in, pick six.
Mhm.
That was big as far
There
as
towards the
helping
end. Yeah.
towards the end. But for the most part, most of those came like they're getting ready to score. If
Mm.
they don't get a touchdown, they are going to at least get a field goal.
Yeah.
And we stopped them from getting field goals because of those interceptions. So, like I said, the secondary stepped up when they had to, but they still got a lot of work to do.
Well, they
So,
do, but I think they're. I was much happier with them after this than after last weekend for sure. Like
yeah.
it looked like we just didn't have a hope in the world with our secondary after the Ole Miss game. But at least with this, it's like they're capable of doing good stuff. They're not just bad players. Um, get things going right, and like you have the potential there for them to actually be good. Get them playing good, especially in key moments when they need to, with an offense that maybe is hopefully working as well as it did in the first couple weeks, and a really good football team. I mean, I think really the biggest like glaring problem right now is a lot of our special teams problems because pretty much every game there's been some kind of major
Well,
goof up on the
what
special
helped our
teams.
secondary out this time was the front line was able to keep pressure
Yeah,
on Ole Miss's quarterback,
yeah, on Costello. He
Costello.
really struggled with that big time.
Yeah, and I think that added
Huge.
pressure caused him to make a lot of mistakes that he
Yeah.
normally wouldn't make. And I think that had a lot to do with those guys being able to be in a position to make those interceptions because he was either underthrowing,
Oh yeah.
overthrowing, or just targeting the wrong guy in general because he's just trying to get rid of it. I mean, let's say, how many times do you see that guy sit there and make a forward pass after he's passed the
Mhm.
line of scrimmage on his feet because he was just
Yeah.
completely miscombobulated?
Yeah. It's kind of the from our team's perspective, it's kind of the opposite of what we saw in the Auburn game, where you know us trying to battle their line and everything. Their quarterback Nix just had all the time in the world on most plays to just throw. Didn't have that pressure, and like you said, this past weekend, like they were really doing a good job just getting right up in his face, not letting him just sit comfortably in the pocket, and really paid dividends. Um, yeah, just the fact that they were able to do that, put our secondary in a lot better position to make winning plays, and a lot of places where it really counted, they delivered.
Yeah.
Um,
So I was, like I said, I was impressed by the way the team rebounded from
mhm.
two horrible losses because I mean it was all on the team.
Right, right.
It was you
I
couldn't
mean,
put the blame on any one person in particular. It was a culmination of screw
and
ups.
even in those games, if one or both had been opponents where you felt like you know we played the best game we could possibly play, we were just outclassed. I mean, that's one thing that still stinks, but I think it'd be tougher to lose two games in a row where you look at it and go, if we had just like done a couple things differently, like it was there for us to do this. It's not
Turnovers.
like and so I mean, yeah, them to be able to bounce back and do a lot better with some of the issues they had in the first couple of weeks. Yeah, I was pretty impressed with that. I think it gives a new glimmer of hope to this season and them actually, getting to the end of the line and actually having a good record potentially. After the Ole Miss game, I thought the sky was falling a little bit because I was pretty much certain we were going to lose this game. And then we'd, be 0-3 on the year looking at, let's just hope to get like two or three if we're lucky. And
Possibly looking at 0-4 because we got to play at Tennessee. We're going to
absolutely,
Neyland next weekend.
or may as well call it 0-5 because I don't think that our momentum would swing back around for us to beat Tennessee or Georgia the next week. So,
No.
I mean, between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, like two in a row, and I guess this one meant a whole lot more this past weekend. It was kind of
Well,
a
Tennessee's going to be
do or
mad
die.
because
Hmm.
they were putting it to Georgia in the first half. And
Yeah.
then
Oh, yeah.
Georgia made their adjustments, obviously, and held, I think, Tennessee to 75
That's
yards
all.
for the entire second half and no points. So, maybe Georgia just didn't come out show up the first half. Don't know. Didn't really watch the game to
Yeah.
see the final score. Rain probably had something to do with it. They had more rain down that way than we did. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So they're probably going to be ticked off. We're going to have a pretty tough couple of weeks ahead as far as that goes. Looking ahead to Tennessee, playing them on the road again, hoping to break that losing streak against them. What do you think kind of the keys to the game are this coming
the
Saturday?
secondary not getting complacent after their big performance this
And
past
that's
weekend
huge.
because, I mean, it's really easy to get in that high and say, hey, look, we just proved you wrong. Now shut up, let us do our thing, and then go
Yeah.
out and lay a goose egg again.
Because this is a game where, I mean, we should be able to stack up with these guys as long as we just show up and play our game.
Yeah,
And
talent
the
for
last thing
talent,
you
we're right
need,
on par with each other. So
yeah. And they kind of play, similar football and everything. So I think it's just going to be a case of, okay, like who shows up, who doesn't.
yeah, I'm not sure what
Yeah,
the. Go
talent-wise,
ahead.
talent-wise, yeah, like you said, we really do just kind of stack up with them. So it's our game to win. It's our game to
Yeah, I
lose.
haven't checked the
Like
spread today. I know it opened as a 6.5 point favorite for Tennessee.
as far as I know, I think it might have moved to 7.5, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that again.
Yes,
It was hovering right around
yeah, I
seven.
think it opened
I
as
don't
six
think it
and a half.
really
I may
moved
be wrong on
from
that, but
that.
I'm pretty sure I seen it opened at 6.5. So
Mhm.
should be a good game.
Yeah, which I totally. I mean, I'm okay with that spread for sure. I mean, to be playing on the road and
And
like we said, the
a,
teams match
a
up
one and
really
three
well.
start
So yeah, I mean, I saw that. I honestly figured
or
we'd be
one
a
and two
double
start. Sorry.
digit underdog. Yeah, just because I figured they would, would look at our record and everything. I figured they would stick us as a, like 12-point underdog or something. But I'll roll with 6 or 7. That's fine.
Yeah, I think the
uh,
butt kicking Georgia gave them kind of skewed those numbers a little bit. So
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, like you said, just especially where it seems like and we've talked about this before, where we seem to have some guys that have come into this year. I mean, I don't want to like dog them or anything, but kind of with some egos, you know, not really arrogant, but just maybe overconfident
mm-hmm.
because of how good we've been the last couple years or so. Having some superstars on the team, the program kind of elevating some. We've had some guys that have come in, they've been backups or been, lower on the depth chart for a little bit, and now here they are, talking trash on Twitter and doing stuff like. AJ Rose in the Ole Miss game, hot dogging 27 yards out and getting caught up, that sort of thing. So I think especially if they could put that kind of stuff behind them, the guy that shoved the Auburn player in the secondary who got us that 15-yard penalty in that game, he actually did some really good stuff this past weekend. I mean, if they could just turn that around, you know, I think those first couple games really humbled them up a little bit. Hopefully it hit home. Hopefully we saw that kind of paying dividends this past weekend because I think going into Tennessee game and especially Georgia the next week, if we want to have a good showing over the next 2 weeks, like they're going to have to show up. That kind of stuff's going to have to be behind them, and especially a lot of just the silly mistakes and dumb stuff that just kind of drives us all as UK football fans crazy. Uh, that's the kind of stuff they need to just do away with. Hopefully,
Yeah, I concur with that completely because
yeah.
we seen a little bit of that silliness show back up this game too.
Yeah,
Slinging a guy
and
down out
just
of bounds. It's like, look, you can go take him out of bounds, but don't sling him to the ground once you get out of
don't
bounds.
pick them up and throw them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't
it's like
don't do that.
you.
The hands
Yeah,
to the face. Yeah, the guy hits you in the face. That's fine. Just back up. Let the officials take care of it.
yeah,
Because it was offsetting penalties, and I thought that was a fair call
yeah,
from the officials. I know some people were mad about it.
mhm,
I'm like, it was fair. I mean, our guy took his helmet off, so
yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
yeah.
Like it's easy when you're a fan to that's crap. They shouldn't be doing that. Like,
Be
I
glad
mean, he
that
did
they
it.
went ahead and
Did
called it
it.
on their player because a lot of the
Yeah.
times they call it in the second guy to create the contact
Hmm.
and not the first. But this time here,
Yeah.
they actually said, no, 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 you're both guilty, both sides. And that was
Yeah.
something else this game, too. Thank you, officials, for calling it fair. This,
I mean, really, didn't really have any major complaints about
and if anything, we got a couple
officiating.
favorable calls our way for a change. So,
Yeah. Something I was thinking after that game was over. So I just thought, in a lot of ways, a lot of the typical like just Kentucky football curse stuff that happens to us a lot really just went the other way. It was either just right down the middle, or when a team kind of got screwed, it was them.
yeah.
We didn't. It really didn't happen to
Yeah,
us.
there was one
So
makeup call there in the game. I
yeah,
know my buddy that was watching the game with me kind of had a fit. He's like, "What?" I was like, "Man, that's kind of a makeup call, I think, because we
yeah,
definitely got one in our favor there a minute ago. So
yeah. I mean,
probably makeup call."
Yeah, nothing really egregious that happened during that game that made you just scratch your head and go like, "What are these guys doing?" Especially after, you know, like the stuff that happened in the Auburn game and everything else. I think we kind of had that coming. Hopefully, that kind of mojo will keep up over these next couple of weeks.
Hopefully.
But hopefully, if we're lucky. Um, so what's your prediction for Saturday? I, I mean, I hate to say anything because I feel like I'll jinx this, but
I'm going to sit there
I don't.
and I'm not going to throw any numbers out, but I'm going to say it's either going to be a really close game, and if it's close, we got a chance, or it's going to
Mhm.
be a blowout and not in
Yeah,
our favor.
yeah, I don't see any scenario where we go down there and blow them out, obviously. But yeah, I think if it's a close game, like mid to late, like third quarter or so, then I think it's anybody's ball game. We could do it. But like you said, there's I pretty much completely agree with that. There's a really good chance that could happen, and we could play these guys down to the wire. There's also a chance, especially after getting our first win, especially if it strokes these guys' egos a little too much and they don't handle it how we hope they will. I could see us going in and laying an
I think
egg,
the
in which case
officiating
we
is
get
going to have a lot to do with it too,
crushed.
because
Yeah.
Tennessee usually gets a lot of favorable calls. If it's called fair, it's going to be
Yeah.
major benefit to us. But if the officials decide they're
Yeah.
going to call every single hold on us and not call a single one on Tennessee, I've seen it time and time again down there, and it makes it hard because they're getting by with stuff and you're not. It's kind of frustrating as a player and a coach.
I think especially if the game starts off really chippy, then I think we could kind of be in trouble on that front. Because I think if guys are, really jaw jacking and getting chippy with each other at the start of the game, then I think they're going to really like tighten up the whistle. And like you said, that usually when you're down there, that kind of goes their way. So,
Typically, yeah.
um, yeah. So
We'd like to break the
I don't
streak
know.
though of losing down
Yeah.
there. I'd like, we beat them in Lexington a couple times, but
Yeah.
not in Neyland.
Yeah. I thought I hate to really even say anything prediction wise, but I thought after the Ole Miss game, we'd pretty much have the team figured out, in terms of kind of see what we're capable of, like on both ends of the spectrum. It probably falls somewhere in the middle. Still didn't really know after last weekend, and even after this past weekend. I mean, now it just kind of looks like, in kind of typical Kentucky football fashion, we could really just fall anywhere on the mark this year. Because I think if all the different cores of our team are playing at their best level, we could be really good. But we could also go out and play a team like Tennessee and get beat by 30 if we're not doing what we're supposed to, we're doing
Yeah,
stupid stuff. So it's hard to really say. I don't know, but it's very puzzling football team. You just look at everything from the first 3 weeks and just how differently things can go. Um, you said you look at everything on paper, you would probably assume that we're 2-1, with our first loss coming to Mississippi State in a lot of ways, but here we are, 1-2. um, what do you think now? Do you think we still have like what do you think like 5-5 is still within reason now that we've gotten this third game behind us? Like, especially if you're thinking the chance that we could go and beat like Florida or Tennessee or something like
I
that.
think we get a shot
I
at
don't think
beating
we're going to beat
Tennessee,
Florida.
but I just don't
Yeah,
see us having a shot at Florida. I mean,
no.
yeah, A
After
and
seeing what
M,
they've done so
A and M
far,
beat them, but A and M's got a good football team, and they were at A and
yeah,
M, and let's face it, that stadium was well above 20% capacity,
yeah,
and it was
quite a
loud.
bit so.
It was the first time I'd actually
Very,
heard like crowd noise, like really loud. Even the commentator said, "Huh, this is probably the first time Florida's quarterbacks had to deal with crowd noise this year." I wonder if it has anything to do with him making a couple bobbles he normally doesn't do. So,
right.
and that's another thing too.
Yeah, like
Florida
that
opened everything
looks.
up as well, so I think their stadium is going to be pretty well packed. We have to go down there and play.
Yeah, at least in my estimation, I think that Florida game, I kind of had, like Georgia, Alabama, not really Auburn, I guess a little bit further down. But I had Florida and Tennessee kind of together on this like kind of mid tier of we're probably, we're going to have to, it's going to be an upset if we win, but it's more doable. Like Florida's a little higher up than that for me now. Like,
Yeah, and then
I'm,
Missouri's not looking like an easy game either. I mean, let's face it, they beat the defending champs. I know they're down as far as personnel goes, but there's still a
yeah,
good coach team. They got a lot of talent. And
Yeah.
Missouri's looked really bad a couple times this year, and that game there they looked really good. You could
Yeah.
say they kind of had the same start we did, so who knows how that's going to turn out.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely no longer. I mean, there's really no gimmies this year since it's an all SEC schedule, but that definitely looks less of a just easily winnable game than I think we kind of assumed coming into the year. So who knows? Hopefully,
Yeah, I mean,
hopefully our team,
we've got three
you know,
three games that I just don't see us have much of a shot at. Bama.
yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry, guys. Say we want Bama all you want. You don't. Very few
Not
teams
winning
do.
that game.
There are some that do, but we're not one of them. Not yet.
Shouldn't, unless you
Florida
just want
this
to lose.
year, I
But
just don't see us wanting any part of that, and I definitely don't want anything to do with Georgia. They're looking really good right out the gate. I haven't seen really a flaw in them yet.
yeah, yeah,
So those are three games that's just probably not winnable.
no. Well, those are games that you just hope that we show up, even if they're not competitive, that we just look like we're playing our best football and not doing dumb stuff, even if we lose by like 15
Mm-hmm.
or something. As long as we don't look terrible and do embarrassing things, then you can't really be upset.
Which I had no problem with Andy. They look atrocious this year. So,
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, there's one. There's one. Just give me good old Vandy.
and then
Good
South
old faithful.
Carolina, I think
I,
we get a good shot against them. They're not looking very good this year either.
no, that's a team that game is ours to lose. Like as long as we show up and play, you know, play the way we're supposed to play, we should win that game. Uh, I don't see them just rising up and upsetting us if we're playing well.
No,
So one definite, then like one right there with it, and then the rest, who knows? It's just
now
it's
earlier in the season I'd said Missouri, but
yeah.
that's I'm curious to see what they do this weekend. If Missouri lays another goose egg this weekend here, I'm like, oh, they had their one good game.
Mm-hmm. They got that out of their
Got it out of their
system. Here's
system.
what they
Here's what
really,
they actually look like.
yeah.
So we'll just
Mm-hmm.
have to wait and see. But right now, I see
Yeah.
two games that we should win for sure, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And starting the season, I did not see that being the case. So
Yeah. The rest we honestly won't really be able to predict that well until we see a little bit more football and see what consistency wise what some of these other teams are going to be and us. So
especially once some of these teams start lining up against teams that we've played, that's
yeah,
gonna be another good indicator.
yeah, especially if Auburn's further exposed or Ole Miss looks better or worse. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out with all these SEC teams just playing each other. See how everything lines out. It's
Yeah.
it's gonna be kind of fascinating. Um, I guess really there's not much talk. Still, not a whole lot to talk about on the basketball side of things.
No.
Anthony Anthony Davis got his first NBA ring last
Um,
night. Ooh. Um, I wish it was with personally wish it was with anybody but LeBron James, but
yeah. Yeah. Same
you
here.
know.
Or LA for that matter. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I was glad for him because I just think the guy is really good and glad he finally has an NBA ring, but maybe go somewhere else now.
yeah. Say bye.
um,
Go get your money back that you should be making.
yeah, yeah. Um, as far as I mean, we're still waiting for conference to clear Olivier Sarr. It's the most
Yeah.
ridiculous thing ever, especially since we're so close to kicking off the season now.
Yeah. UK rifle
But
team won their season opener. So
yeah, really only scheduling change I think that's really happened in the last week or two since we last recorded. I know they were replaced like for their little home classic thing that they do where they're supposed to be bringing in Hartford, Richmond, and Detroit Mercy with Brad Calipari. Guess Hartford stepped away and we're bringing in Morehead State. Um, I like that. I like the idea if we're going to bring somebody else in, bring in an in-state team. Be fun, like just bring Morehead in. It's a fun name from back where we're from
yeah.
and everything. So, I enjoy that a lot, and it makes that. I mean, we should beat them unless they Evansville us, but between that and playing a team like Richmond, that you look at that name, it doesn't mean anything, but they're going to be like a top 25, 20 team to start the year, and we're looking pretty good at the end of last year. So, you know, still, I don't know. Well, especially once we figure out exactly who we're going to have on our team next year with the Olivier Sarr, Waiver, and Toppin. I guess they're actually going to they've applied for a waiver for him as well, just in case. Why not? I mean,
Right.
you never know. Especially, kind of makes sense to me because I figure, if you bring in Olivia, you got Olivier Sarr and Brooks in your starting lineup, and you got a whole bunch of freshmen who could be really good or be very underwhelming.
Right.
So if you got this guy who's a transfer who's coming and it looks like you've at least seen him do some decent stuff somewhere else, well, then at least that's another option to throw out there coming off the bench. So, but yeah, as far as basketball goes, we're still just kind of,
In limbo.
yeah, waiting around and seeing. Hopefully we get these waivers, get all of our guys cleared, and then yeah, we're pretty close to figuring out the schedule. Really, the biggest thing they got to do now is figuring out who our Big 12 team is going to be for Big 12 Challenge. I mean, we'll probably talk about this, once we get all that. Probably do a whole episode just kind of previewing basketball and this year and the program and all that stuff, like we do with football.
Mm.
But as far as like who we could get to finish out that schedule for the Big 12 stuff, like who would you like to see, or do you really care at this point?
It doesn't matter. Whoever. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see them doing it in a lot of different ways. Bring Baylor to Rupp since we were on the road last time,
yeah,
or
maybe
bring
Oklahoma
West
or
Virginia.
something. I
Yeah,
mean, we haven't really played them in it, so be somebody
yeah. I
different.
could see him. I could see him doing like West Virginia just for the rubber match. Um,
One three
I don't
one.
think
Are you sure
they'll.
you want to see that against a young team?
I didn't say I want to see it. In fact, I'd be really happy if they
I
did do
mean,
that
our
this year.
tournament teams
Uh,
struggle with it, let alone.
yeah, I don't. That's not necessarily something I want to see this year against, a team that's basically all brand new except Keon Brooks. Um, no, I just soon bring in, like you said, either like Oklahoma or just go for like if Baylor's still is gonna be as good as advertised, bring them in because you're gonna have like, just a matchup with another like top five team or something. Um, Other than that, I don't know. The Texas Tech game was really fun last year. I mean, eventually I'd like to play those guys again in Rupp,
Yeah,
but um, yeah, I don't think they'll do that
not anytime
like back to
soon.
back years. We'll have to wait probably a couple more years for them to bring them in. But
They'd rather match us up
yeah,
against Kansas.
well, we already got them, so
I know, but that's their
I
normal
hate playing them.
pick.
Yeah, I like playing them in the Champions Classic on a neutral court, but I hate all this Big 12 Challenge stuff because you know, we win one, they win like two or three.
Yeah,
It's, um, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, they'll just pick a good team though that'll help really iron that out and give us another like top level, resume opponent. Um, there's plenty to pick from
yeah.
there. So, but yeah, unless you got anything else, I think that pretty much covers it for this
No, that
week.
should be about it. I think we're doing pretty good on that. I mean, it's a short one, but covered everything we needed to. So
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just football and keeping our fingers crossed and hoping for basketball.
yeah,
So, yeah, well, hope everybody enjoyed this. Be sure to, if you did, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit us in the comments if you have anything to add or anything you disagree with, whatever. We'd like to hear from you. But yeah, if that's it, then yeah, I guess we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.